Hi everyone and welcome back to Amplify. How are you guys? I had a couple of rough weeks. Even my dream board is empty. But now I'm trying to get back to things that give me pleasure, and one of them is Amplify. In today's episode, we're gonna talk to a very unusual guest. Before introducing our guest, I would love you to have a look at previously on Amplify.
Yes, who do I want to amplify? I've got a good friend and a brilliant artist. Her name's RUVÉ Staneke. She is an insanely talented artist. Her portraits and her landscapes are just incredible. And she's got such an interesting way of looking at the world. It's highly creative and highly unique. I think she's just finished doing like a major in like psychology and metaphysics or something. I don't even know what it was, but yeah, amazing person and really, really good to talk to. Has a lot of thoughts about the world. So I just want to, yeah, amplify her and her work because she's doing some amazing stuff.
As you might have already understood, today's episode is going to be not only about art, but also about things like dimensions, metaphysics, astrology. So I'm so excited to share it with you guys. Without further ado, RUVÉ STANEKE.
Well, good morning here and good afternoon at your end. How's it going today?
Yeah, it's going well, thank you. How are you going? It's so early for you.
It's early. It doesn't look like August at all. It looks more like some November, but I'm happy because I'm here. I can chat with you. And well, I got in touch with you because you've been amplified by Andrew Jackson. And I interviewed him for my project, which is called Amplify. And the project is about just giving more visibility to talented people and kind of supporting them this way. I started it in 2021. You know, at the beginning of the year, everybody had nothing to do, and I wanted to kind of cherish the authors, cherish the artists, the different people from different artistic areas. So I started this project. Let's start with what is your relationship with Andrew Jackson?
Yeah, for sure. Firstly, I love the initiative. Us creatives really appreciate it, so thank you. So Andrew, I actually grew up knowing him. So I used to go to C3 Church Victory, which is the church I grew up in, and he was a leader there. And essentially he became like a mentor to me. He and his wife, I was there at that church with them for about 10 years. And so I grew up pretty much with him as a mentor to me. And he's a great person. So I was pretty lucky.
I read his books and I really love talking to him. And if we talk about you, can you tell us about your childhood? Where did you grow up in general, and where are you right now?
Yeah. So I grew up in Newcastle, New South Wales. It's on the east coast of Australia. It's a beautiful little place. I loved going to the beach. So I lived there until I was 18, and then I moved down 2 hours to Sydney, where I started studying I started studying at university. And so I'm currently still living in Sydney.
Okay. And how did you first get in touch with art?
Art for me, it's intrinsic to who I am. It's like breathing. I can't really separate art from myself. It's not something that I, decided to pick up consciously. It's something that I've always done. Ever since I could hold something, I was making things with my hands, whether it be with blocks or Play-Doh or finger painting. My mum really allowed me to be very creative from a young age. And so I can't separate it from who I am. I've always grown up with it, and it is me.
Do you have any other artistic people in your family?
Yeah, I think my whole family is creative in their own way. I believe that everybody is creative in one way or another. My my dad, he used to draw cartoons. My mum makes candles. My sister can also paint and draw, and my brother can draw as well. But he's chosen to go into physics and engineering. So he's drawing different things now.
If we talk about physics and engineering, because I read on your website how many different areas are influencing your art. Is it something that you kind of got from your relatives, or how comes that metaphysics influence your art?
That's a good question. I mean, yes, I am inspired by my family and what they do, but I think my interest in engineering, metaphysics, science, I think that all came through my studying at university. So I actually have a degree in philosophy and a degree in fine art as well. And I'm currently studying architecture. And so I think I just, yeah, I'm a perpetual student. But I think I just became interested really in things like metaphysics when I was undertaking philosophy, and I started to get more interested in science and the philosophy of science. And so I began to look more into physics, and that kind of infiltrated into my artworks, because I think that science should be available for everyone. And I think using art and creativity is a really great way to make it available to everyone. And really, I think that science is art, and I think that art is science. So I really am interested in bridging that gap between the two fields.
But this is awesome because you're not defined by one thing, that you're a painter or something in one kind of direction. And
Yeah.
this is what a lot of people, I think, struggle with, because we see a lot of even like artistic coaches who say that, oh, you should stick to one direction and gain your audience in one direction, etc. I'm not buying it, because I think
Yes.
there are so many sides of any artistic person. Why should we put ourselves in a box? Let's explore. Okay, let's go
I
to
agree.
all the prizes you have, because I read about Salman Art Prize. That was at kind of early stage for you, right?
Yes. That one was 2014, I believe. So yeah, quite a long while ago now. But that was definitely a prize that made me really want to focus on becoming more of an artist. So that was 2 years after finishing high school. And at that point, I had started university twice. And I got into the Salman Art Prize, and I decided that, well, if I can get into something like this, then I might as well try and continue pursuing my art. And so I quit uni again, and then I focused on my art for another 2 years until starting at uni again. And that's when I started my double degree, and yeah, I finished that. And so now I'm at uni for the 5th time, but I'm still painting.
What inspired your piece called Dreamer?
Well, for me, Dreamer was a self-portrait. I'd like to do self-portraits mainly because it's an expression, or an outward expression of, I guess, how I see myself in the world. And, you know, I am always here, so I can always paint myself, and I'm not going to offend myself if I paint a painting that I don't like, because it's me. But really, it was about, I guess it was about being aware, consciously aware of the things that we're thinking about, and then being aware of what we're speaking out. And I guess this goes back to my interest in psychology. I also studied psychology with my philosophy degree. And I'm interested in the ideas that neuroscience give. And there's something called neuroplasticity, and it talks about how, you know, we can kind of retrain our brains, and how we should really be conscious of the thoughts that we're thinking, because they have a physical impact on our brains and on our bodies. And so for me, Dreamer was about being consciously aware of the things that we're thinking, so that we're more conscious about the things that we're speaking, because I feel that words have a lot of power, and they have the power to change how we feel about ourselves, and they have the power to change how other people feel in the world around us. And so for me, that's what that painting was about.
What about Ellie's art prize? You're still in the competition, or how does it
That
work?
one ended. So that one was in 2020, so last year. So yeah, the Alice Art Prize is held in Alice Springs, which is essentially the red desert of Australia. It's right near Uluru, the big rock. And yeah, that piece for me. So I drew that. The inspiration for that was my trip that I had in America in 2019. So, if I recall correctly, that desert scene was from Utah or Arizona. But essentially, the line drawing over the top of it, I'm trying to remember it now. It was referencing it was referencing a four-dimensional universe. Yeah. So a four-dimensional, fifth-dimensional. I can't quite remember, but essentially, we experience three dimensions in our everyday, and so you've got, length, you've got width, and you've got height, and so we experience those things, and we can see them tangibly. And then so they're the first three spatial dimensions, and then you've got the fourth dimension, which is time. And so essentially, the world we live in is this kind of four-dimensional world that we can see and we can understand, at least to an extent. And so the one I had for the Alice Art Prize, I was looking into the notion of a five-dimensional universe. And so essentially, this fifth dimension, we can't really comprehend it simply because we can't actually fathom what this other dimension might look like. And so essentially that drawing relates back to physics and quantum mechanics and how they're looking into the subatomic world and the different dimensions. And essentially, there are different theories about like hyperspace. I love Michio Kaku. He's a physicist and he looks into these ideas, but they think that there's 11 dimensions in the universe that we live in. And essentially, they're exploring these kind of subatomic dimensions that, in these dimensions, time goes backwards, things can be in two places at once. And essentially, it was just a reference to the studies that they're doing in quantum physics and, yeah, how the world around us, there's so much more to it than we can see with our own eyes or feel with our senses. There's so much more to it that we just can't comprehend. So that was me trying to comprehend it in an artistic way.
Are there any other scientists who inspire you?
Yes, there's an astronomer. His name is Professor Alan Duffy. So he's an astrophysicist and he's actually in Australia at the moment. And I've met up with him twice because I've actually painted him for some portrait competitions. So I'm really inspired by his work. He is really interested in dark matter. And that's something that I've researched a little bit for my own philosophical writings back when I was studying that in my undergraduate. So yeah, I'm really loving his work. He's actually working on a project at the moment to create a dark matter detector in Melbourne, I believe, here in Australia. So yeah, I love his work. Who else is there? Hugh Ross. He's another astrophysicist. I really love his work, but I actually got to meet him as well when I was studying in Canada in 2019. I met him at a talk that he hosted, and I went up to him afterwards. And
that's awesome because you really met the people that inspire you. It doesn't happen all the time. Well, it happens, but I mean, those are scientists, and you. At the first look at you, we can't say that you're, inspired by science and things like that.
yeah.
So that's something very unusual in my opinion, and inspiring because, again, it shows that there are so many sides of one person.
Yes.
Let's discuss 2020. How did you go through it?
I mean, yeah, I don't think words can really describe or capture 2020 well enough, really. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I really grew as a person. I mean, it was a really tough year. Needless to say, I think we all know that. But I guess, and I don't like to compare my life to anyone else's, but if I were to compare my life to other people's around the globe last year, I feel like I had it pretty easy. I definitely can't complain. I mean, the Australian government was very helpful. Even though I wasn't surrounded by my family or friends, I still had the technology to chat with them. So, and I still knew that they were there for me. So that was good. But I mean, three main things stand out to me when I think of 2020. And I actually made a series of artworks on this at the end of last year. But one thing that stood out to me was how the climate is so rapidly changing. And so when I flew back into Australia from Canada at the very end of 2019, just before COVID hit, I flew back into a red sky because of the bushfires that were happening here. And so that extended for, a few months. And yeah, that amongst all of the other, climatic changes that were happening around the globe last year, that really grabbed my attention. And yeah, it made me really realize the importance of designing for a sustainable future, which is something that I'm really interested in at the moment with my architecture studies. So that's something that really stood out to me last year, as well as the Black Lives Movement. So I am very much for equality in every sense. And to think that we still have to have those sort of rallies and those sorts of conversations, to think that there's still inequality in so many ways, it really baffles me. Because we're in the 21st century, we're all human. Why can't we appreciate that we're all equal in that sense? So that's something that really stood out to me from last year as well. And then, yeah, the overarching thing from last year was obviously COVID. And so I think that's something that I take away from COVID, is that it forced me to stop and to be with myself and to be with my own thoughts. And I think that is something that scared a lot of people, because I think often we think that we're so busy because that way we have an excuse to always go out and be doing things, so that we're not having to stop and be with ourselves and be with our own thoughts. Because sometimes those thoughts are scary, and sometimes we have questions that we don't have answers to. And so it really made me realize that we really are not in control, but that's okay. We can't control the things that happen to us or around us, but we can control how we respond to those things. That's something that I really got out of last year.
To me, 2020 was also like one of the best years. I had all the possible time that I needed to come and be okay with myself, And
Yes,
what about
totally.
2021?
2021. Well, as I mentioned, I am studying architecture now. So yeah, last year I graduated with my double degree, and so this year I started architecture. It's been a bit rocky to begin with, but that's not because of the degree itself. That's because I have been uncertain as to whether or not I should continue studying at an undergraduate level and if I should do another degree. But I am really enjoying it now. And so the rest of 2021 will be continuing on with my degree and continuing with my artworks as well. So it's just trying to find a balance between my university work and my commission pieces or competitions that I'm working towards as well. But as of right now, I'm currently in lockdown because Sydney is in lockdown, as we've been for about 7 weeks now. But that's really just given me time to actually focus on doing my work well, because usually I would be having to go to work as well as doing my university work. So I'm really just trying to make the most of the time in lockdown to focus on my studies and to continue working on the artworks that I have coming up.
Do you have a day routine? I don't know, you wake up early in the morning, do some specific stuff, meditation, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate routine and structure, but I do also really enjoy spontaneity and change. And so I think it's finding a balance between those things. But generally, on a daily basis, I'll try to get up fairly early, eat some breakfast. I usually get straight into my university work because I'm quite studious and I like to do well. And so I'll tend to be working on my uni work, or I'll have class online. And then generally for sunset, I will go for a walk by the beach. I used to run quite a bit. I need to get back into that. But yeah, I'll always try and get outside for a walk and appreciate nature, because that's where I feel most alive. And then, yeah, I'll continue with my work after that. And I always try and read a little bit as well before I go to bed, just because there are so many fascinating books to read and so many things to learn about.
Anything you can recommend reading for someone who wants to understand science the easiest way?
Okay, yes, definitely. I mean, there are some books by Stephen Hawking that I've read. He breaks down scientific theories quite well, just for the layman. Yeah, I'd recommend Stephen Hawking if you want to get started into science.
What are you reading right now?
I'm currently in between about 8 different books. I'll start reading one and then put it aside and start another one. So I'm currently reading a novel on Antarctica, because I would love to get to Antarctica one day. So that's something I'm reading. I'm also reading a book on quantum biology. So it's written by these two scientists, and they're actually discussing the magnetoreception within a robin, and so how the robins actually migrate using the Earth's magnetic field, and they're linking that to quantum physics, which is really interesting. I also started reading The Eternal Golden Braid, which is a book about Gödel, Escher, and Bach, and that's really interesting because it fuses like music with science, math, all of that together. So that's very interesting. I can't quite remember the other books.
You're reading 8 books at the same time, of course.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk a bit about mental health, and if you're facing some difficulties, how do you deal with them?
That's a good question. I mean, as I mentioned at the start, I go to church, and so I believe in God. So if I'm finding something difficult, I will tend to pray about it. I'll tend to think about it, and then I'll tend to talk about it out loud, between me and God, because that helps me to understand things better sometimes when I articulate them or verbalize them. But also, it is definitely good to talk to people that you trust. I think that's something that I learned last year, because I used to be quite closed off. I would often keep my emotions to myself. I was not good at becoming vulnerable, and that's something that I really worked on last year, almost in a sense because I was forced to. But yeah, I really discovered that opening up and being vulnerable to people doesn't make you weak. It actually makes you stronger. And so, yeah, now if I'm finding something difficult, I will often talk about it with someone that I really trust and who I care about and who I know cares about me. And yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, I like to be conscious of the things that I'm thinking about. So when I am experiencing something difficult and it might induce sort of negative thoughts in me, I'll try to always locate where those thoughts are coming from. And I'm someone who always asks why, because I feel like that's how we understand things better and come to the truth of things. And so I ask myself, okay, well, why am I feeling that this is difficult? And why is it that I might be feeling this way? And that just helps me kind of approach it in a logical sort of manner. And it helps me, I guess, isolate abstract concepts in a way that will be helpful for me, I guess. And that is pretty abstract in itself. But I
Mhm.
guess that's how I work through things.
Do you incorporate a lot of those beliefs and Christianity in your works?
Yeah, I think so. Even if it's subconsciously. I think because, I've identified with Christianity since I was about 11 or 12. I think it's something that's become so ingrained in the way that I think about things and understand things that it's kind of subconsciously underlying my work. But I think it's also important that I am consciously aware of that because there are, biases obviously that everybody has, and I don't want to just assume things just because I've grown up learning something to be a particular way. And so I guess that's why it's important that we ask why about everything.
Are you planning any collections in 2021? I
Mm.
haven't see them on the website.
Yeah, I haven't created a lot this year, mostly because I started my new degree. But in saying that, having not created a lot of artwork has made me really want to create more. So as I mentioned, I'm working on some pieces for some competitions later on this year. So I'll have to update my website and post them on there. I would actually really love to create another solo exhibition because it's been, I think, 6 years since I had a solo exhibition. So that's definitely something that I would like to work towards. And yeah, definitely being in another group exhibition at some point soon would be really nice. Honestly, anything would be really good right now. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'll be studying again next year, if I'll defer for a year. In the case that I do defer, I will definitely be focusing on making a lot more art. So we'll see how we go.
Where do we find the strength to believe in ourselves and believe in our works and enter the competition?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess I've generally been a pretty confident person throughout my life. And so I've always thought to myself, okay, well, if I want to do something, it's not going to happen if I don't do it. And so I guess, yeah, I finished high school and then the next year I started entering these national competitions. And yeah, I just think you never know unless you try something. And it's like the saying, like, you have to be in it to win it. I mean, it's as cliche as it sounds, it's true. I'm not going to have the opportunity to be in something if I don't actually allow myself or afford myself the opportunity. And that's going to happen by me putting myself out there. And yeah, I guess believing in myself. And I guess sometimes I believe in myself more than other times. But I think that's just part of being a human. We feel different ways and different things at different points in our lives. But yeah, I mean, regarding the logistics of finding the competitions, there's a website called Art Almanac, which is a website that I often resort to if I want to find competitions nationally and internationally as well. But really, like, Google is your best friend. It will tell you where competitions and exhibitions are and what you can enter. And
Did you do a lot of international ones?
I think I've entered maybe one before. I think it was an international art fair. I didn't get accepted into it, so I haven't exhibited internationally. Although I do have people around the world that have purchased my work. So I do have my work hanging in people's houses internationally, but I haven't exhibited internationally as yet.
Mm-hmm. When you receive a no, how do you handle it?
Mm-hmm. I think initially, that gut reaction is, oh, okay, I didn't make it. And it's very easy to start questioning, okay, well, was it the work? Did they not like the concept? Was it not technical enough? Am I not good enough? But I think we have to remember that, if someone doesn't accept an artwork, it doesn't mean that they're not accepting you as a person. In fact, they don't even know you as a person. And so I think that it's important to distinguish between the work that I create and me as a human being. You know, it's not this ad hominem attack. It's not that, you know, they're going against you as a person. So I think that's a key thing to remember when I don't get accepted into something. But then, you know, after that initial disappointment, I tell myself, okay, well, I'll just keep trying. You know, even the best artists in the world, whoever that is, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that they would get into every competition, and it doesn't mean that everyone's going to like every piece that they make. So really, I don't see it as a failure, because at least I tried. And I like to think that every new piece that I create is strengthening me as an artist and honing my skills and resulting in a better artist in general.
When I went through your works, there are a lot of course, inspired by science. I don't really understand science. That's why I was asking about the book.
Oh no, that's okay.
Yeah, but there was one which I really loved it because it's kind of, I wanted to be transported there. So there was a house, the flower fields. What inspired this piece?
Oh, okay, that's a great story. I really enjoyed doing that piece, actually. So I made that in 2019 when I was living in Canada, and I actually went to Canada for an exchange year with university. So I lived there for a year, and at the beginning of my time there, I befriended a Dane, and we became really good friends. And in the summer holiday break, I decided to go see her in Denmark, and I stayed with her at her farm, and I was with her for 3 weeks. And essentially, the time that I was there, it just so happens that there was a Viking ship that actually was going to be sailing from where she lived around the Baltic Sea. And because where she lives, there's a fjord, there's a museum there. And what actually happened was, a while ago, a few decades ago, they found 5 Viking ships sunk at the bottom of this fjord. And they excavated them, and then they pieced them together as best they could. And they essentially made a replica of this warship. And it's actually the biggest Viking ship replica in the world, and you can sail it. And so she and I were part of a crew of about 63 members, and we sailed this Viking ship. It was literally, I was on these ropes called the Hyoto, and I had to pull these ropes, which brought the mast up and down. And I had to row. There was no motor. We had to sleep on the deck. If you wanted to use the bathroom, it was a bucket on the side of this wooden ship. So essentially, we were sailing this Viking ship for 10 days around the Baltic Sea. And sometimes we would stop at little islands around near the coast. And essentially, we stopped at this one little island. And I always had my camera with me. And so we docked the boat, which was actually, we actually got shipwrecked one day because the boat actually had a hole in it. So we had to take everything like off the top of the boat, and we had to tip the boat sideways, and we had to get someone in with scuba diving gear to go into the water and actually patch up the hole. That's another story. But anyway, essentially on one of these islands we stopped at, there was this yellow house. And I just thought it looked so nice and the field was so beautiful. So I just snapped a picture of it. And that's the picture that I painted. And that's the story of that painting.
This is crazy because people don't understand when they look at a piece of art, there is a story behind and there is so much behind it. I don't know, but when I was going through the pictures, that was my favorite one because I'm driven into such locations and such state of mind. I think I felt some calmness, I felt some melancholy, and I wanted to be there. And so I said, okay, I'm going to talk to you about it. And then you hear, this is crazy. Shipwreck, so many events behind one one
Yeah.
artwork. And what about I'm Not Your Baby? So that was another piece?
Oh, yes. Okay, yes. So that was a piece that I made last year. I was really, so we had to choose an artist and explore the way that they, drew something, or the way that they, created something. So I picked this particular artist, but essentially the concept behind that was that I feel like women are very objectified sometimes. So essentially, it was just about the objectification of women. And also, I guess it relates back to equality in that, I feel that women should be treated just as fairly as men in every respect. And so essentially, depending on what you look like, you might be walking down the street and someone might whistle at you or something like that, and they think that it's a compliment. But I find a lot of women feel it's very degrading, and so essentially, Not Your Baby is just about it's about bringing that to light, essentially. Yeah.
Any new skills you would like to learn or planning to learn?
Mm-hmm. I did actually purchase a keyboard last year because I wanted to teach myself to play the piano. So I taught myself half a song, and then I kind of forgot about that and got onto other things. But I would definitely like to get back into teaching myself piano. And I actually used to speak Dutch fluently when I was younger. So I'm trying to relearn Dutch again because my family is Dutch. So I'm trying to relearn it so I can speak with them. So yeah, they're two skills. Oh, I did really want to get to the snowfields this winter. The snowfields are about 3 hours south of where I am because I have a snowboard. I learnt to snowboard in Austria, and then I snowboarded again in Canada. And so I really wanted to get better at doing that. But alas, I'm in lockdown and can't get there. So that will have to be for another year.
Do you have any advice to people who would like to start painting?
Mm-hmm. I would say just try it, just do it. Like, even if you think it doesn't look good, that doesn't really matter because really that's subjective, and so many things are subjective. But I'd say, yeah, I don't know, pick up a pencil, pick up a paintbrush. There are so many tutorials now online on YouTube that, you can watch those and figure out how to do things. There are lots of books that you can buy which will take you through step by step how to draw something. And I mean, as much as I tried to get things to look as realistic as possible, sometimes it's really good just to realize that it's not really about whether or not something looks like a photo or looks like real life. It's really about expressing what you're feeling and expressing the concept of it and enjoying the process in it. And I think that kind of alludes to, I guess, how we live life. It's not really about attaining something or some end sort of goal or product, but it's really about enjoying the everyday and like the little things of every day, like what you were talking about before. And so I think it's really just about starting somewhere, recognizing that it will take time to learn, and there's still so many things for me to learn with art making. And perfection is not something that we should strive for, because really, what even is perfection? Does it even exist? And if it does, it's probably pretty boring.
Who do you want to amplify?
I would like to amplify my friend, Lauren Coley. She's a tattoo artist, and she actually tattooed me when I was with her in her studio in England. And we actually met on tour in Iceland. So she's a really cool girl. Yeah.
She's a tattoo artist. Awesome. Really nice. RUVÉ, where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram. That's generally where I post most of my stuff. I do have a website as well, which I do need to update. But essentially, they're the two kind of platforms that I use most with my art.
Okay, yeah. gonna give a shout out. Thank you very much for spending this time with me. It's very exciting. I mean, I learned about science. I learned about you as being in different countries, the crazy stories behind your artworks. This is really awesome and inspiring. And there are so many sides of you, which I think should be a sign to everybody that let's not put ourselves in the box, and let's really explore everything that's interesting for us.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you guys for streaming the episode. Thank you for staying till the end of the episode. And go to the description and check out the links. Give some love on the page of RUVÉ STANEKE. Give some love on the page of Amplify. And I already mentioned that at the end of every episode I try to include a song by independent musician, and the song of this week is going to be actually the song of the guest of next week. So...
It does still make my heart beat, want to feel. You can take it or give up too, 'cause now you'll have to wait for me to. Sure, it won't change my love for you.